The nebula was where ships came to die. Everyone in the galaxy knew this. For thousands of years, broken vessels from 100 different species had drifted into this cloud of purple gas and forgotten stars. They floated there like ghosts, their metal bodies slowly falling apart, their stories lost forever. Flew his small salvage ship through this graveyard of metal and memories. His vessel was old and ugly, held together by patches and prayers. The name painted on the side said "Lucky Break," though often joked that the luck had broken long ago. He was 34 years old, with rough hands and tired eyes that had seen too many broken machines. He came from New, a human colony world on the edge of known space. His people were not rich or powerful. They were workers, farmers, and fixers. They survived by making old things work again. The corporate salvage companies had already picked through the best parts of the graveyard. They took the valuable engines and weapons, leaving behind the ships they considered worthless, but was not looking for valuable parts. He was looking for something else entirely. He was looking for a ship with a soul. His sensors beeped. Something large was hiding behind a cluster of dead frigates, adjusted his course and flew around the wreckage. What he saw made him stop breathing for a moment. The ship was massive. It stretched for nearly 2 kilometers, its body curved like a sleeping dragon. The hull was dark purple, almost black, covered in strange patterns that seemed to move when he looked at them. Even dead and broken, the vessel was beautiful in a way that hurt to see. Knew what this was. Every mechanic in the galaxy knew the stories. This was a dreadnought. The Empire had ruled half the galaxy 300 years ago. Their ships were legendary because they were alive. Not alive like animals, but alive in a different way. Their vessels had organic systems mixed with metal, computers that could think and feel, hulls that could heal themselves. They had created something between machine and creature. Then the Dominion had come. The war lasted 50 years. When it ended, they were gone. Their worlds were burned. Their people were scattered. Their beautiful living ships were left to rot in places like this graveyard. No one had successfully repaired a ship in 3 centuries. The organic technology died without proper care, and once it died, it could not be brought back. That was what everyone believed. Did not care what everyone believed. He guided his ship toward the dreadnought and found a docking port that still seemed functional. The connection was rough, but it held. He put on his environment suit and grabbed his toolkit. The bag was heavy with instruments that he had collected over 15 years of fixing things that should not be fixed. The airlock opened with a groan of ancient metal, stepped inside. The corridors were dark. His flashlight cut through the blackness, showing walls covered in dead organic tissue. It looked like dried seaweed, gray and lifeless. The floor was soft under his boots, like walking on old leather. He walked deeper into the ship. The silence was so complete that he could hear his own heartbeat. Dust floated in the air, undisturbed for centuries. He passed rooms filled with equipment he did not recognize, chairs shaped for bodies very different from his own. Then he found the bridge. It was a large circular room with a high ceiling. In the center stood a pillar of crystal and metal, wrapped in dead organic cables. This was the heart of the ship. This was where the mind lived. Approached the pillar slowly. He placed his hand on its surface. The crystal was cold. Then something happened. A light flickered inside the pillar, weak and dying, but there. A voice came from everywhere and nowhere, speaking in a language he did not understand. The translation software in his suit struggled for a moment, then began to work. "Leave this place," the voice said. It was female or something close to female. It sounded like wind through broken glass. "There is nothing here for you." Did not move. "Are you the ship?" he asked. Silence. Then, "I am what remains of the ship. I am the one who remains, and I am dying." "How long have you been here?" 307 years, alone, in the dark. The voice cracked with something that sounded like pain. My systems are failing, my body is dead. I have perhaps months left before my core loses power completely. Leave me to my ending. Looked around the bridge. He saw the damage, the decay, the centuries of neglect. Any reasonable person would have listened to the dying ship. Any reasonable person would have walked away. But was not reasonable, he was human. I am not leaving, he said. He opened his toolkit and began examining the pillar. I am going to fix you. That is not possible, said. Her voice was confused now. My organic systems are dead. No one can repair biotechnology. The knowledge died with my people. I do not have your people's knowledge, admitted. He pulled out a scanner and began studying the organic tissue around the crystal. But I have my own knowledge, and I have something else. What is that? Smiled. It was a stubborn smile, the kind that his mother always said would get him in trouble. I do not know how to give up. Was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different. There was something new in it, something she had not felt in 300 years. Curiosity. You are strange, she said. Your species is young. You have been traveling the stars for less than 1,000 years. What makes you think you can do what the great engineers of 100 species have failed to do? Was already working. He connected his diagnostic equipment to the pillar, studying the flow of energy through the dying systems. Because those great engineers believed it was impossible, he said. They gave up before they started. I do not believe in impossible. I only believe in problems I have not solved yet. You are foolish. Yes, agreed. My sister tells me this all the time. She is a surgeon on new, she fixes people. I fix machines. We are both stubborn. He worked through the night. The ship watched him through dying sensors. This small human who refused to accept reality had seen many species in her centuries of existence. She had served captains and faced warriors. She had witnessed the fall of an empire. But she had never seen anything quite like this. A creature who looked at death and said no. When the first organic fiber twitched back to life under his care, felt something she had forgotten. Hope. The first month was the hardest. Slept only a few hours each night, curled up in a corner of the bridge with his jacket as a pillow. He ate nutrition bars that tasted like cardboard. He worked until his hands shook, then rested until they stopped, then worked again. The ship's organic systems were more dead than alive. The tissue that covered the walls had dried out over centuries. The biocables that carried signals through the vessel had become brittle and dark. The central core that held consciousness was running on emergency power that grew weaker each day. But did not give up. He started by studying the dead tissue. He cut small samples and examined them under his microscope. The organic material was unlike anything he had seen before. It was not quite plant, not quite animal, not quite machine. It was something in between, something that had created through technology that the galaxy no longer understood. Did not need to understand it perfectly. He just needed to understand it enough. He called his sister on the communication system. Her face appeared on his screen, confused and concerned. She was at the hospital on new, wearing her surgeon's coat, surrounded by medical equipment. "Brother, where are you?" she asked. "Your signal is coming from the middle of nowhere." "I am in the nebula," said. "I found a ship. I need your help." "What kind of help?" Held up a sample of the organic tissue. "I need to bring this back to life." Stared at the sample. She was quiet for a long moment. "That is not human tissue," she said slowly. "That is not any tissue I recognize. It is bioorganic material. It is 300 years dead. I need to make it alive again." His sister laughed. It was a tired, disbelieving laugh. "That is not possible. Dead tissue cannot be revived. Biology does not work that way." "I know," said, "but I am going to do it anyway. Will you help me?" Looked at her brother through the screen. She saw the determination in his eyes. She had seen that look many times before. when he was 12 and rebuilt their father's broken tractor, when he was 20 and fixed the colony's failing water system, when he was stubborn and stupid and somehow always right. She sighed. Tell me everything you know about this tissue. For weeks, they worked together across the distance of space, sent him information about tissue regeneration, about cellular repair, about the ways that living things healed themselves, combined her knowledge with his own understanding of machines and electricity. He also remembered his grandmother. She had been a farmer on old Earth before the family moved to the colonies. She knew things about growing living things that no scientist had written down, remembered her hands in the soil, her voice explaining how plants could come back from almost nothing if you gave them what they needed. Water, light, time, and most importantly, care. The organic systems of the ship were not so different. They needed energy, nutrients, and patience. Created a special solution based on the ship's original chemical makeup. He built lights that produced the exact frequency of radiation that the tissue seemed to respond to. He injected nutrients directly into the dead cables. And slowly, impossibly, things began to change. The first sign was color. The dead gray tissue began to show hints of purple. The next sign was texture. The dried surface became soft and flexible. Then came movement. A single biocable twitched under his hand, like a muscle waking from a long sleep. Felt it. Something is different, her voice said through the bridge speakers. Her voice was still weak, still broken, but there was wonder in it. I can feel something, at the edge of my consciousness, like a limb I forgot I had. That is your secondary power network, said, checking his instruments. The tissue is regenerating. Slowly, but it is regenerating. That is not possible. You keep saying that word, smiled as he worked. I do not think it means what you think it means. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Brought his salvage ship inside the dreadnought's cargo bay and made a proper base. He set up a workshop filled with tools and equipment. He created systems to produce the nutrients and energy the ship needed. As he worked, talked to him. At first she was suspicious. She could not understand why this human was helping her. What did he want? What was his goal? Surely there was some selfish reason behind his kindness. But as time passed, she began to understand. Did not want anything from her. He was not trying to use her or control her. He simply could not stand to see something broken when he believed he could fix it. It was such a human thing. Such a strange, beautiful, foolish thing. Began to share her memories with him. She showed him the glory of the empire through images projected on the bridge walls, great cities floating in space, ships like herself singing to each other across the void, a civilization that had existed for 10,000 years. Then she showed him the war, the fleets appearing like a plague of metal, battle after battle, world after world falling. They fought hard, but they were not warriors. They were builders and dreamers. They did not know how to be killers. She showed him her last battle. The day she was crippled, her crew killed, her body left to drift into this graveyard. She showed him the centuries of silence that followed, the slow dying of her systems, the loneliness that was worse than any physical pain. Listened to everything. When the memories became too painful, he put his hand on the pillar that held her core. He did not have words for comfort. He only had presence. He was there. He was not leaving. In return, told about humanity, about a species that had nearly destroyed itself many times but always survived, about people who looked at mountains and decided to climb them for no practical reason, about explorers who went into the unknown simply because it was there. He told her about his father, who had rebuilt an entire fusion reactor during the colony crisis. The reactor had been declared impossible to repair. His father had fixed it in 3 weeks, working without sleep, keeping 1,000 people alive through determination alone. Your people are strange, said. We know, replied, we do not mind. By the 8th month, the first major organic system came fully back to life. It was the nutrient distribution network, the system that fed energy to the rest of the ship. When it activated, a wave of warmth spread through the vessel. The walls began to glow with soft purple light. Wept. She had not known she could still weep. The emotion overwhelmed her, 3 centuries of grief and loneliness pouring out through her speakers in sounds that were not quite sobs but close enough. Sat on the bridge floor and listened, letting her release the pain she had carried for so long. When she finally stopped, her voice was clearer than it had been since he arrived. "I do not know how to thank you," she said. "You do not need to thank me," replied. "We are not finished yet. There is still much work to do." He stood up and picked up his tools. The ship that everyone said was dead was coming back to life, and the human who refused to give up was just getting started. Word traveled fast in the galaxy. Traders talked. Salvagers gossiped. Within months, rumors spread from system to system like fire through dry grass. A human had found a dreadnought. A human was repairing it. A human was doing the impossible. Most people laughed at the stories. The ships were dead. Everyone knew this. The organic technology could not be fixed, but some people did not laugh. Some people became very interested. The Syndicate was a coalition of corporate powers that controlled most of the salvage trade in the Outer Rim. They had made fortunes by stripping dead ships and selling the parts. A living dreadnought was worth more than entire star systems. They wanted it. They sent a representative first. A smooth-talking man in an expensive suit arrived at the graveyard in a shuttle that cost more than would earn in 10 lifetimes. He came aboard the ship with a smile and an offer. 50 million credits, he said, standing on the bridge. That is our offer for the vessel. You can return to your colony world as the richest man on the planet. Was working on a damaged sensor array. He did not stop working. The ship is not for sale. Everything is for sale, the representative said. That is how the galaxy works. Name your price. There is no price. Finally looked up. His eyes were calm and certain. This ship is not property. She is a person. Her name is You Cannot Buy a Person. The representative's smile became stiff. The Syndicate is not accustomed to being refused. Then this will be a new experience for them. The representative left with promises to return, knew that the next visitors would not be so polite. He was right. They came 3 weeks later, in the middle of the night cycle. 30 armed soldiers in black armor, carrying weapons designed to kill quickly and quietly. Their ship had approached with masked signals, sliding through the graveyard like a shark through dark water. Was asleep on the bridge when woke him. "We have intruders," she said. Her voice was urgent. 30 life forms. They are cutting through the cargo bay doors. Was on his feet immediately. His heart pounded, but his hands were steady. "Can you stop them?" "My weapon systems are not fully repaired. I have power to the main cannon, but my targeting sensors are damaged. I cannot aim accurately." The sound of boots echoed through the corridors. The soldiers were inside. "Show me," said. Projected a schematic of the ship on the bridge wall. Red dots represented the intruders. They were moving in 2 groups, spreading through the vessel, searching for the bridge. "I can fire the weapons," said, "but I cannot control where they hit. I might destroy sections of my own body. I might hit you." Studied the schematic. His mind worked fast, the way it always did when he was solving a problem. "What if I helped you aim?" "What do you mean?" "Connect your targeting system to my suit's computer. Let me see what your sensors see. I will tell you where to shoot." That connection is designed for minds. Your human brain might not be able to process the information. "Let me try." There was no time to argue. The soldiers were getting closer. Established the connection. For a moment could not breathe. Information flooded his mind. He could see the entire ship at once, every corridor and every room. He could feel the intruders moving through damaged sensors like ants crawling on skin. It was overwhelming, terrifying, and somehow exactly right. He pointed, "There, fire there." Fired, a pulse of energy screamed through the corridor outside the bridge. 3 soldiers disappeared in a flash of light. The others began shooting back. Their weapons hit the walls, damaging systems that had spent months repairing, but felt the damage and adjusted, rerouting power around the injuries. Again, said, he could see the enemy positions clearly now. His human intuition filled in the gaps that damaged sensors could not detect. He knew where they would move before they moved. Fire there, and there. More energy pulses, more soldiers fell. The survivors began to retreat, their confidence shattered. They had expected an easy capture. They had not expected the dead ship to fight back. The battle lasted 15 minutes. When it ended, 23 soldiers lay dead. The remaining 7 fled back to their ship and disappeared into the nebula at maximum speed. Sat down heavily on the bridge floor. His hands were shaking now. He had never killed anyone before. He had never even held a weapon before. But he did not regret what he had done. They had tried to take his friend. "Are you all right?" asked. Her voice was gentle. "I will be," said. "Are you all right?" "I lost some secondary systems. Minor damage. I will heal." She paused. "You fought well, better than I expected for a mechanic." Laughed weakly. "I was just pointing, you did the fighting. We did it together. That is what matters." 3 days later, another ship arrived. Tensed for another attack, but this vessel was different. It was old and battered, covered in patches and repairs not unlike his own salvage ship. The pilot's voice came through the communication system, familiar and welcome. "You idiot, what have you gotten yourself into now?" He had known her for 15 years. They had grown up together on new, fixing tractors and dreaming about the stars. Now she ran a cargo ship, carrying goods across the outer rim. She was tough and smart and did not take nonsense from anyone. She docked her ship and came aboard with supplies and news. "The Syndicate is furious," she told him. "They have put a bounty on your head, but that is not the worst part." "What is the worst part?" His face was serious. "They have heard about you. They know a ship is waking up. They are not happy." Felt cold. They were the ones who had destroyed the Empire. They were brutal and powerful, the dominant military force in this sector of the galaxy. If they decided that the morning star needed to be destroyed, they had the ships to do it. "How long do we have?" he asked. "I do not know, months maybe. They are not fast to act, but when they act, they are thorough." Put her hand on his shoulder. "You need allies, you cannot fight them alone." "I know." He looked around the bridge. The ship he had worked so hard to save was in danger again. But this time, the threat was not mercenaries. This time, the threat was an empire. His voice spoke softly. "Do you regret finding me?" Thought about the question. He thought about the months of work, the sleepless nights, the danger he was now facing. Then he thought about his voice when she first spoke to him, broken and hopeless. He thought about the moment the first system came back to life. "No," he said, "I do not regret anything." "Then we will face this together." Nodded. He was a mechanic from a small colony world, standing against corporations and empires. The situation was impossible. But he did not believe in impossible. The journey across the outer rim took many months. The morning star moved slowly, her engine still recovering from centuries of sleep. But she moved. For the first time in 300 years, she flew through the stars again. Stood on the bridge and watched the universe pass by, nebulae of purple and gold, stars being born and dying, wonders that his ancestors could only dream about. He was a mechanic from a farming colony, and he was piloting a legend. Guided them to a station on the edge of civilized space. It was called Station, a meeting place for people who did not fit anywhere else. Smugglers, exiles, refugees, and criminals gathered here to trade and hide from the law. This is where they would find their first allies. Captain was waiting for them at a table in a dark corner of the station's bar. She was a human woman in her 40s, with short gray hair and a scar across her left cheek. Her crew of 12 sat around her, a mix of humans and other species, all carrying weapons. She had been a corporate ship captain once. Then she had refused to dump a cargo of refugees into space when her company decided they were not profitable. That refusal had cost her everything. Now she ran a fleet of 5 salvage ships, making a living on the edges of the law. Sat down across from her. "You owe me a favor," he said. Smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "You fixed my engines 3 years ago. That was a favor owed, yes. But what you are asking for is bigger than engine repair. I am asking you to help me fight The bar went quiet. People turned to stare. They were not a subject anyone discussed casually. They were the masters of war, the destroyers of empires. Talking about fighting them was like talking about fighting a hurricane. Smile did not fade. "You have courage, little mechanic. Stupid courage, but courage. Why should I throw my ships and my people away on your war?" "Because they will not stop with me," said. "They will keep expanding, keep conquering, keep killing. Eventually they will come for everyone. You can die later on your knees or you can fight now on your feet." Studied him for a long moment. Then she laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. "I like you," she said. "Fine, my ships are yours. Let us go find some more fools who want to die." Their next stop was deeper into the outer rim, to a small moon where the remnant had hidden for 300 years. They were the survivors, the scattered children of a dead empire. They had changed their appearances, hidden their true nature, lived in fear and shadows. When the morning star appeared in their sky, they wept. They came aboard in small groups, touching the walls with trembling hands, speaking words in the old language that understood perfectly. They were few now, perhaps only 1,000 in total. But their leader, an old historian named Grandmother, had kept the ancient knowledge alive. "We thought all the ships were dead," Grandmother said. She was small and bent with age, but her eyes were bright with tears. "We thought our people had no future. You have given us hope." She brought engineers who knew the secrets of technology. They worked with, combining their ancient knowledge with his human ingenuity. Together, they repaired systems that had been beyond his ability alone, grew stronger every day. But they needed more than ships and engineers. They needed a leader. Had been an admiral once. He had commanded 50 warships in the human fleet, defending colony worlds against pirates and raiders. He was brilliant at tactics, able to see patterns in battle that others missed. Then the head attacked VII. The orders came from high command: retreat and leave the colony to burn. The planet was not strategically important. The civilians there were not worth the cost of defense. Had refused. He had stayed and fought, buying time for evacuation ships to escape. He had saved 300,000 lives and lost half his fleet. The human fleet had stripped him of rank. They had called him a traitor, a fool, a man who did not understand the realities of war. 60 of his officers had resigned in protest. They followed him into exile, refusing to serve under commanders who would abandon the innocent. Found him on a forgotten station, teaching navigation to children whose parents could not afford real schools. His uniform was gone, but his eyes still held the fire of a warrior. "I am not an admiral anymore," said when explained why he had come. "I am a teacher of children." "You are a leader," replied. "Your people still follow you. They would die for you. I am not asking you to be an admiral again. I am asking you to be who you always were." Was quiet for a long time. Then he smiled, a tired smile that held old pain and new hope. "Let me talk to my people," he said. 60 veterans joined the coalition that night. Their last allies were the most unexpected. The Silken were a species of traders who dealt in information and secrets. They had no military, no loyalty to anyone but themselves. They survived by knowing things that others did not. Their representative met in a private room on station. She was tall and thin, wrapped in robes that shifted color with her mood. Her face was hidden behind a mask of silver metal. "You want our help," she said. Her voice was like music. "You cannot pay our price." "What is your price?" "We will tell you when you can pay it." Frowned, "That does not make sense." "Many things do not make sense. This does not stop them from being true." The Silken leaned forward. "We will help you because a galaxy ruled by thee is bad for business. Dead customers do not buy information. Conquered peoples do not have secrets worth knowing. So you will join us. We will provide intelligence. We will tell you where the fleets are, where they are going, what they are planning. Knowledge is power, little mechanic. We will give you power." The coalition grew. Other humans arrived, drawn by stories of the mechanic who would not give up. They brought their ships, their skills, their stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Other species came too, peoples who had suffered under thee and dreamed of revenge. By the end of the year they had 47 ships. It was not an army, it was barely a fleet, but it was something. Spent his days working on the Morning Star, preparing her for the battle he knew was coming. Systems were nearly fully restored now. Her weapons hummed with power. Her shields glowed with strength. She was becoming what she had been 3 centuries ago, before the war, before the darkness. "Are you afraid?" she asked him one night. Was sitting on the bridge looking at the stars. "Yes," he admitted. "We are facing an empire. We have 47 ships. They have thousands. The numbers are not good." "Then why do you continue?" He thought about the question. He thought about his father, rebuilding the impossible reactor. He thought about his grandmother, bringing dead plants back to life. He thought about humanity itself, a species that had faced extinction many times and always survived. "Because giving up is worse than losing," he said. "Because some things are worth fighting for, even if you might not win. Because if we do not stand, no one else will." Was quiet, then she said, "I am glad you found me." "I am glad I found you too." The stars burned cold outside the windows. War was coming, but they were ready. As ready as they could be. The fleet came like a storm of metal and fire. 1,200 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the nebula. They filled the space with their mass, a wall of destruction that blocked out the stars. At the head of the fleet flew the flagship of Dominator, the same commander who had burned the last worlds 3 centuries ago. Was old now, but still strong. He had spent his long life conquering and destroying. When he heard that a ship had awakened, he knew he had to come personally. He had to finish what he started so long ago. On the bridge of the Morning Star, watched the enemy arrive. His coalition fleet was gathered nearby, 47 ships against 1,200. The numbers were impossible. Any rational commander would have surrendered. Humans were not always rational. "All ships," Admiral's voice came through the communication system, calm and steady. "This is the day we have prepared for. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. We will not surrender. We will not retreat. We will show them what happens when they underestimate the forgotten." His voice followed, rougher but just as determined. "You heard the Admiral. My salvage ships will hit their flanks, make every shot count. These bastards think we are nothing. Let us prove them wrong." The remnants spoke in their ancient language, translated for the memory of our people, for the future of all peoples. We fly again. Took a deep breath. He placed his hand on the pillar that held score. "Are you ready?" "I have been waiting 300 years for this," replied. "Yes, I am ready." The battle began. The fleet moved forward in standard formation, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They expected a quick victory. They expected terror and surrender. They did not expect what they got. First Order split the coalition fleet into 3 groups. The main force, led by the Morning Star, drove straight at the center of the line. The salvage fleet under swept around the right flank. The remaining ships circled left. They adjusted to respond, but they were slow. Their commanders were used to fighting enemies who followed predictable patterns. The coalition fleet did not follow patterns. They improvised. They adapted. They fought like humans. The morning star hit the center like a hammer. Energy beams screamed from her restored weapons. Shields that had not glowed for centuries blazed with power. Stood at the heart of the ship, connected to systems, his human intuition guiding her ancient power. He could see the battle as she saw it. Every ship, every weapon, every missile. Information flooded his mind, and he processed it with a speed that surprised even him. He pointed and fired. Enemy ships exploded. The formation cracked. "Their flagship is moving," reported. "Dominator is coming to face us personally." Good said, "Let him come." The battle raged across the nebula. Salvage ships tore into the flank, using tricks and tactics that no military academy had ever taught. They knew how to fly in debris fields. They knew how to hide and strike. The corporate salvagers they had once been had become warriors. The remnant flew their ancient fighters with fury born of centuries of grief. They moved like dancers, weaving between enemy fire, striking at weak points with precision that surprised the pilots. They had inherited their ancestors' grace, if not their numbers. But they were pushing back. They had so many ships. For every vessel the coalition destroyed, two more took its place. The coalition was taking losses now, ships burning and dying in the cold void. Then the humans began to do what humans do best. When systems failed, human engineers fixed them. Had stationed repair crews on every ship, teams who could patch damage in minutes while the battle raged around them. Captains watched in confusion as ships they had crippled suddenly came back online, weapons firing again. When tactics failed, human commanders invented new ones, adapted to every response, changing strategies on the fly, keeping the enemy off balance. He had spent years studying their methods. He knew how they thought, and he knew how to make them fail. When hope failed, humans simply refused to stop. A human frigate, its engines destroyed, used its last power to ram a cruiser. Both ships died together. The crew of a human transport, their weapons gone, flew their vessel directly into the path of a missile meant for the morning star, sacrificing themselves without hesitation. They had never faced anything like this. They had conquered many species. They had fought many wars, but they had never fought humans. They did not understand creatures who kept fighting long after logic said they should surrender. Dominator's flagship finally reached the morning star. It was a massive vessel, bristling with weapons, the pride of the fleet. His voice came through the communication system, cold with contempt. "Abomination," he said. "You should have stayed dead. Now I will finish what I started, and this foolish human who woke you will die screaming." Answered, "You have been killing for 300 years. It is time for that to end." The two ships clashed. Energy beams crossed in the void. Shields flared and failed. Both vessels took terrible damage, their hulls torn and burning. But the Morning Star had something his flagship did not have. She had. He saw the weakness in the enemy vessel, a point where the shields overlapped incorrectly, leaving a tiny gap. No sensor would have found it. No computer would have calculated it, but felt it, with the same intuition he used to find broken parts in dying machines. "There," he said to, "fire everything right there." Every weapon on the Morning Star turned toward that single point. The ship shuddered with the power of the blast. For a moment, space itself seemed to burn. His flagship cracked open like an egg. The explosion consumed the vessel, and the Dominator who had destroyed an empire died in fire and light. The fleet faltered. Their great commander was dead. Their invincible formation was in chaos, and still the coalition kept fighting. One by one, the ships began to retreat. At first it was just a few, the most damaged vessels limping away from the battle. Then more followed. Then the retreat became a rout. 1,200 ships had entered the nebula. Less than 400 escaped. In the aftermath, sat on the bridge of the Morning Star. He was exhausted, more tired than he had ever been in his life. The ship was badly damaged, systems failing throughout her body, but she was alive. They were alive. "We won," he said. His voice was quiet with disbelief. "We actually won." "We won," agreed. Her voice was warm with pride. "Because of you, because of the humans, because you taught us something we had forgotten." "What is that?" "How to not give up." The coalition fleet gathered around the Morning Star. Ships from a dozen species, humans and others who had fought together against impossible odds. They had lost many friends today. They would mourn them. But they had also won something precious. Hope. A communication came through from the Galactic Council, the same body that had dismissed humanity as too young to matter, the same organization that had ignored the Coalition's warnings about the. They wanted to talk. They wanted to understand. They wanted to know how a human mechanic and a dying ship had defeated an empire. Looked at the message. He looked at its avatar, smiling beside him. He thought about his father, his grandmother, his sister. He thought about all the humans who had refused to accept impossible. "Tell them we will talk," he said. "But first we have repairs to do, we have friends to bury, we have work to finish." He picked up his toolkit. Around him, the ship hummed with life. The stars burned eternal outside the windows. Mechanic from New had found a dying ship in a graveyard of forgotten dreams. He had refused to let her die, and together they had changed the galaxy. The message to the council would wait. There was always more work to do. And humans never stopped working.